I'd like to talk with you today about an issue of great cultural and historical importance, and it all has to do with food. Everybody eats, and a small percentage of people who eat are curious about the source of their food. They're thinking about it, they're hoping that it's safe, they're hoping that it's healthy. Those who are particularly farsighted are hoping that it's sustainable. In other words, they hope that there will be food tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and food for their children, and food for their grandchildren, and food for future generations. That's something that the average person, unfortunately, doesn't think about. Therefore, a lot of things have happened in our food production that are a whole lot less than positive. For example, one of the most important foods there are the grains. That would be things like corn and wheat and oats and rice. These are called staples, and they're also called the staff of life. And there's a good reason for that. They do carry some nutrition, but they are most important for carrying the energy that we need to live on. No energy, no life. Thus, the staff of life. Calories from these sources are not the enemy. You need a certain amount of calories every day just for your brain and body to function. It's a little bit alarming that the production of grain in the United States and Canada and many developed countries has been completely taken over by big agribusiness. There is no local grain production in these countries anymore. It's gone. Again, for people who are farsighted, that should be alarming. That should be alarming because bad things happen when big business takes control of things. For example, wheat. Have you ever seen so many people with wheat allergies and gluten allergies? How could that be possible? How could humanity have survived for all these thousands of years eating something that makes so many people sick? Well, what a lot of people don't know is that big agribusiness has decided that the most economical way to harvest a wheat crop is to spray it with Roundup first, kill it, make it brittle, and then run the harvesting machines over it. They save a little bit of money when they do it that way. It's a little bit more efficient. Believe it or not, this is not illegal and there's nobody regulating it. So it's very possible that many of these difficulties that people are having with wheat have to do with Roundup on their wheat. That's a separate issue for a separate time. One of the great problems of restoring local grain culture is that all the people that know how to do it are gone. It's been over 100 years since the United States has had a culture that knew how to grow grain locally. The second issue is that even if you could find people who knew how to grow grain in a local, ecologically sustainable way, how do you persuade them to give up normal jobs with health care and benefits and paid vacations to take on a job that's really difficult? So we've got a problem. We've got a complete loss of our local grain production. We have agricultural methods that are not ecologically sound, that are not sustainable, and it looks like they're not even healthy. We've lost all our local grain farmers, and we live in an economy that's designed in such a way that it's impossible for anyone to make the decision to become a local grain farmer. So what do? Well, sometimes you get lucky. And I feel that we, and when I say we, I mean everybody who's interested in eating, we have a situation where we can actually participate in helping turn this around. One of the staples around the world is rice. And I was surprised to learn recently that rice can be grown in all different kinds of climates. It doesn't need to be grown in the tropics. In the United States, typically rice is grown in Louisiana, South Carolina, Texas, and the Central Valley of California, where a lot of water is needed to make it grow. But it can also be grown in cold climates. They're growing it right now successfully in Vermont. What I want to talk with you today about is a group that's growing rice successfully in the Hudson Valley of New York. This is a climate a lot like Iowa, Wisconsin, or Massachusetts. During the summer season, you can grow rice successfully in the Hudson Valley. Even though it's not wheat, it is a staple, a staff of life. So who's growing this rice? This is an amazing story, and I want to give you the backstory first. Another little known fact is that some of the greatest rice growers in history come from West Africa. Among other things, they come from the Senegambia region, where the modern countries of Senegal and Gambia come from. And they've been growing rice for a long, long time. In fact, when Europeans arrived in the 1400s and 1500s to explore the area, there were already thriving rice farms there. This is a variety of wheat that is different than the varieties grown in Asia. Botanists are not entirely sure how it came to be. It might be indigenous to West Africa, or it might be at the end of some unknown trade route from centuries and centuries ago. But in any event, it's a specific strain of rice that was developed in Africa. Rice, it turns out, can be grown in a lot of different microclimates. And believe it or not, the farmers of Senegambia, Senegal and Gambia, have developed more different ways to grow rice in more different microclimates than even the people of Asia, which is pretty amazing. It kind of takes the image of rice and rice growing and turns it on its head. What we have in the Hudson right now, in the Hudson Valley, is family and friends from Gambia and Senegal who have started growing rice in the Hudson Valley. Why do they do it? They do it because they love it. The word culture is part of the word agriculture, isn't it? It takes a culture to do local agriculture. To do mass-scale big agriculture, you just need seeds and bank loans and a little bit of scientific education. Culture is not necessary. But to grow locally and take care of a particular piece of land and to grow in a sustainable, ecologically intelligent way, that takes cultural understanding. And these African fellows have it. Back in their home country, they are master rice growers. They're not some guys who just thought it would be interesting to experiment with growing rice. These are people who are descendants of a whole culture of people who have been growing rice on a large scale, ecologically and successfully for a long, long time. Here in the Hudson Valley, they're now into their second year. They've had 2 successful crops. They've demonstrated they know how to do it. And by the way, they've demonstrated something else that's very important. There's a lot of marginal farmland in the United States that can't be used because it's too damp. When you walk through it, you hear your feet squishing in the water, and there's not much you can grow in it. How much of this land exists in the United States? Millions of acres. By growing rice in this sustainable, ecologically intelligent way, millions of currently unused acreage in the United States and around the world could be utilized for growing food. This is an amazing thing. We've got the potential restoration of local grain production. That alone is a big deal and very rare. It is happening piecemeal in different parts of the country, but right now it's a very tiny movement. But here's a case where we have a group of people who are already expert in this. They have centuries of culture behind them, cultural knowledge. The cultural knowledge that's been wiped out in many parts of the world. This project is of historic interest because the last Africans who came to the United States to grow rice arrived in chains. That's right. South Carolina was a big slave state, and their big cash crop was rice. And you can bet that the English slave traders didn't know a thing about how to grow rice. How could they? So what they did, and this is something you can verify for yourself, when they went to Africa, they would specifically look for kidnapped, terrorized human beings who also happened to be rice farmers. They paid a premium for them, and they imported them by the thousands and thousands to South Carolina. And it was those people and their knowledge that built what is now the rice industry in the United States. Here in our area, we have Africans coming voluntarily, not in chains, but in freedom to give a gift of knowledge to the United States, an important gift, a gift that most people would not understand the significance of. But you do. You understand the significance of people having control over their own local grain production. So where are these folks at? Well, they've got the land, they're growing on it, they're producing their crop, and they've got a market, and people buy everything they grow, and everything is going very well. The only gap they have is they do not have the ability to mill the rice themselves. They have to load their cars and trucks with the rice and drive over 200 miles one way to Vermont, where there is a fellow who has some small-scale rice milling equipment that he shares with them. Believe it or not, small-scale rice milling equipment does not exist in the United States. It's not made here, and it's not sold here. The only way you can get it is used from Asia. So this fellow has helped them find a set of equipment that they need to mill rice with, and they're in the process of buying it. Once they have this equipment, they're going to be able to mill their own rice, and that will allow them to expand. They are already in a position to expand radically. People here locally who have marginal, damp, unfarmable land have been offering them land for free, the use of their land for free. Just use it, they say. So the only limit on how much these folks can grow is the practicality of being able to mill the rice themselves. Once they're established, they're going to be able to teach other people how to do this very same thing. So we're not talking about just bringing knowledge to the Hudson Valley. We're talking about perhaps bringing knowledge to the entire country or even the entire world. Because let's face it, it's a lot easier to go to the Hudson Valley to learn how to grow rice than it is to go to Senegal or Gambia. When I say this is a project of great historical importance, I'm not exaggerating. The amount of money needed is pretty trivial. They're about $3,000 short of their goal. I know there are people listening to this who could chip in. Some could chip in significantly and substantially. I want you to think about this project, and I want you to think about the state of the world and the direction we're going in. I don't know a single opportunity out there where somebody could leverage so much good, where a dollar could have the long-term impact of $10 or $100 or $1,000. Who knows how much good could come out of this if we could successfully transplant this traditional, ecologically sound, sustainable method of growing rice to the United States. We could transform millions of marginal pieces of farmland into productive farmland, and perhaps create work and a decent livelihood for hundreds, maybe thousands of people in America and around the world, and Americans will finally get to eat good rice. That's the other issue here. You can't believe the difference between the rice these guys grow and the rice you get from the supermarket or even a health food store. It has a whole different taste, and I'm sure it's a lot more nutritious. So $25, $50, $100, $500, maybe there's somebody out there who could write a check for the whole amount that they need for their milling equipment. Believe me, if I were in a position to do so, I would do it. This is a good group of people. They are reliable. They are serious. They've already got 2 years under their belt, and they're coming at this not with a vague idea, but with something grown and rooted in centuries and centuries of culture, and I would even say passion. Why do they grow rice? They weren't trying to prove a point. They just missed the work that they used to do back home in Gambia. It was a part of their life. The man who's a leader of this is a very well-known and revered musician in Gambia. This guy does not need to grow rice. He's doing it because he misses the local culture of taking care of one's own land and growing one's own food. To take this full circle, the word culture is inside agriculture. We can't have local agriculture if we don't restore culture. Here we are with an unparalleled opportunity to import a very successful and very positive culture of rice growing that has hundreds and hundreds of years with thousands and thousands of lives behind it. So be generous, please. Please, if you can do it, this is a good place to contribute, and I think you're going to get some nice rice out of the deal and make some nice friends. This is Ken McCarthy asking you to support the African Rice Project in the Hudson Valley. Thank you.